Marchel Alexandrovich, senior European economist at Jefferies. Let me ask you about that haircut situation first. Do you think 60% is a realistic target for the bondholders?
I think it probably is. I think from our perspective, it's all a matter of timing. Greek debt has to be cut. IMF come out with an estimate last week, I think it was, basically saying that Greek debt GDP is going to peak at about 190% of GDP. Debt GDP is going to peak at about 190% of GDP, and I think realistically it has to be cut to about half of that, so 80 to 90% is something that markets probably think is sustainable.
Nevertheless, you've got the ECB that doesn't appear to be taking that terribly kindly, pushing for the July agreement to be implemented in full.
Absolutely. Well, ECB plays a very important role in all this, because ECB, under Jean-Claude Trichet at least, have been saying that they do not want to see an aggressive haircut on Greek debt. Any solution to Greek debt has to be voluntary, and I think that's their line. I think it's interesting, obviously, how the situation changes when Mario Draghi takes over from November.
And we've got this delay now in the meeting, the European meeting, only for a few days, but that's quite interesting, and also that it's taking place over a weekend when the markets are closed.
It is interesting. They're waiting, obviously, for a report back on Greece, and I think it's fascinating time at the moment when Sarkozy and Merkel stood up 2 days ago. Basically, the idea said they're going to come up with some news. Markets took it quite kindly, but in reality, you're not quite sure what they're preparing you for. Is it going to be a big Greek default that they're actually sort of gearing up the markets for?
Do you think they've really got it this time? This is the last possible deadline to actually get their act together and come out with something that markets are crying out for?
Of course not. I think we'll be here. We'll be here for many, many weeks and many more months to come. It's going to be a repeat of, it's basically a repeat of what we saw in July. Two of them stood up and said, we're going to deliver something substantial in the coming months. They're standing up 2 months later, effectively promising the same thing. Maybe we'll get something concrete on sort of an EFSF. Hopefully EFSF gets ratified today with Slovakia.
Oh, well, that's not an absolute given.
Absolutely
I mean, could
not.
A country of 5 million people actually hold this process up? Or do you think they'd go, you know what, forget Slovakia, let's just...
Slovakia has to ratify it. Every country has to ratify it. But in reality, what happens if Slovakia says no, Slovakia will be told to vote again and again and again until they say yes. Obviously, political instability in Slovakia could be part of the equation, but ultimately, Slovakia will be told to vote again until it says yes.
Now, we've got these bank recapitalisation plans that we are told will be unveiled by November the 3rd. I suppose the big question is where the money is actually going to come for that. And certainly when you look at a country such as France, which is really under pressure.
Well, the money comes from EFSF, obviously there's 440 billion there, there's 250 billion of IMF money, so potentially the money to recapitalize banks is there. But I think the issue is, do you kind of deal with the symptom of the problem, which is weak banks, or do you kind of deal with the underlying problem, which is stability of sovereign debt in Europe? And I think the issue with haircutting Greek debt is you're basically stating that sovereign debt in Europe is no longer safe. So, and instantaneously, the market will make a connection. It's not just Greek debt we're talking about Irish debt, Portuguese debt, Italian
pressure
debt.
on Belgium, especially at the moment.
Of course, Belgium. I mean, we had an announcement from Moody's saying as soon as they're deciding to kind of stand behind Dexia instantaneously, they're being put on watch precisely because sort of poor debt dynamics and what it could mean to Belgian rating.
And that extra pressure is coming from the ratings agencies. Do you think that they are actually doing a very good job at the moment? Do you think they should just keep quiet? I mean, what's your view on what's going on?
Markets are convinced that they should keep quiet at this point. I don't think they're adding much value to the debate. They continue to be behind the curve. They continue to come up with statements on ratings. But markets know what this is all about. This is about stability of banks. Now, as soon as sovereigns committed to support their banks, sovereigns do come under pressure. But rating agencies not really adding anything new to the debate.
Okay, Marchel Alexandrovich from Jefferies. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us here on Bloomberg.